right, everybody, it's Anthony Brogdon, and I'm coming at you once again. I'm going to keep coming at you until you hit the subscribe button, then I'm going to come at you some more. So come on, hit the subscribe button. It's free. This is my way of keeping the history alive. And I can't just say Black history because it's from all the angles. And we have some wellness on the show too. I want you to stay well, in terms of eating and mental and physical and so on and so forth. So we get some of that, but mostly it's about history. And you're going to really like this one. This lady, she just a second ago, she said, I got something else I'm going to share on your show too about some of what I've written in my thesis to get my master's degree. And it was so prolific that when they read the title, they didn't even read no more. They said, you on to something special, and we know how intelligent you are. So this is the kind of folk that come on the show, and I'm blessed by having them on here. This strong inspiration has made me a better person. And I was just telling her, the guest, that I've had several people come on the show that, and all of them are very, very good, that have completely moved me by their commitment to others. You're going to be moved by what this lady has to say and her commitment to sharing this history. So watch some of the videos, like the guy who in Florida has spent his entire career mentoring young men, from those that were incarcerated and otherwise. Watch that. Watch the one I did with the lady who sets up, and she did this, and now she's a city council person in Laurel, Mississippi. And she set up a march in conjunction with her museum there, and ran into some racist acts where the sheriff said, you need to stop it. She said, it's too far gone. We're going to be there. And it was without incident. Watch that video. Watch the one I did with the guy who spied on a KKK rally and got caught. I interviewed him so he didn't die. You know what I mean? It was him. It's an amazing story. Watch that one. Watch the one I did with the lady out of Canada, who she is the founder of Black History Month in Canada for the nation. Watch that one. And so many others are on the show. Again, go to that subscribe, do it right now. Pause me, hit the subscribe, hit the notifications bell, so that when video come out, you get notified. And I'm releasing some videos almost daily, even if it's just replay, so that you are notified. You ain't watched them all. We're over 600 strong. And then I appreciate that. And tell somebody about Strong Inspiration. Don't keep it to yourself. Couple housekeeping. All right, everybody, come on now. My sales are up. And I suspect because of people who like you who watch the show. Get you a copy of this book, Black Business Book, over 200 amazing facts on the rise of Black business in America. I go back to the 1800s, and I stop at 1960. So get you a copy of that. It's 17 chapters, real easy to read. I add no commentary. Check it out. I'm excited because I have recently released a children's coloring book titled They Did It. It has 30 African-American business owners who lived in the 1800s. It's a coloring book for your kids, ages 4 through 10. 11, 12, 13, they all gonna need to read it, and they can take a time while they're reading it. They can take some crayons and color within the lines, and it's a keepsake. Get you a copy of They Did It, my coloring book. Soon I will be releasing another book titled That's My Land, on the history of Black towns and settlements. And I'm speaking across the country, everybody. I'll come to your town. Invite me. Let's make it work so that I can share some of these amazing stories. So with all that said, it's on my website. Go there, businessnin the Black BLACK.net. Do it today. All those items make great Christmas gifts. You're giving a gift of knowledge and what I call good Black history. So go to my website, businessintheblack.net. You hear me use this term strong a lot. It's my favorite word in my world. Strong stands for strength, tenacity, resilience, and a sense of oneness, nobility, and grace. And that is my introduction to the lady on the channel today. Come on, let's get it on.
Hi, everyone. My name is Shelby. I'm the curator at the Texas City Museum. I have a bachelor's degree in anthropology, as well as a master's degree in history. And for my master's thesis, I focused on how formerly enslaved women were active participants in public discourse and created political materials to fight for freedom.
All right. Well, as I alluded to it before we went on the air, I want my audience to get to know you a little bit. So, where were you born and raised?
Yeah, I was actually dad was in the military, so I was born in California, and we lived there for a few years, and then I was raised in South Texas, just a little bit below Houston, if anybody's familiar with Galveston, Texas. I was raised there. Texas City is just a few miles out of Galveston, so we share a lot of the same significant history there.
Is
Um,
that right?
yeah,
Is it on the island?
it's just off the island, so you have to go over the causeway to get to Texas City, but it's only about a 15 to 20-minute drive from the center of Galveston to Texas City.
Oh, okay, okay. What's the population makeup of your town?
Yeah, roughly 60,000. So it's a little smaller. Galveston, Texas is a big tourist destination. So this time of year it gets real quiet.
Okay.
And or closer to December it gets real quiet, and then from about April until October it's bumping. And Texas City has really developed itself into a destination as well. And it has a similar population, I think, maybe just a little bit more than Galveston.
Oh, really? What's the racial makeup of your town?
Galveston is pretty I don't know the exact statistics,
Sure.
but it's a fairly diverse, place, especially, Texas gets, often a pretty well-deserved reputation for, its, negative history, right?
Oh, it's Texas,
Yeah.
the state itself.
Texas, the state itself,
Yeah,
correct.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Galveston, this little area of the Gulf Coast has always felt like a little pocket, right? It's, especially being so close to Houston, it's very diverse. You can find food of all different cultures,
Yeah,
especially going to Houston, you can find food from anywhere in the world.
sure,
Right?
sure.
Yeah, so Galveston's fairly diverse, and same with Texas City. We
Is
have
that right?
yeah,
So,
mhm.
so did you go to a grade school with African American kids?
Yes, yeah,
Oh,
all the
really?
so I started off in private school. My experience in private school was definitely more limited. Um, I started in private school and then I hated private school. Uh, and my
Okay.
parents thankfully listened to me and put me into public school. And the Galveston ISD, Galveston Independent School District, is very diverse. So I was lucky to grow up around all walks of life. Um,
Really?
yeah.
What? Okay, I got to ask you this. What made you that way to want to do that and not want to just be around, if for the lack of a better way, white kids?
Yeah, I think that's a great question, actually. Well, you know, I look white, but I am Hispanic. Um,
Oh,
and
okay,
my family lost a lot of our history due to, um, honestly, during segregation. My grandmother and her whole generation of our family spoke fluent Spanish. But they didn't wanna teach any of their children. So, like, my parents, my aunts and uncles didn't wanna teach them Spanish. So once you get disconnected from that language, it's easier to lose other parts of it. My grandmother died before I was born, so I didn't get to see the food that she made growing up. And I'll reference food a lot. I
Yeah,
think that's the anthropology in me because food is the great to me is that great
sure.
connection. Um,
Okay,
so I I come from Spanish and Mexican descent. Uh,
okay.
they those two cultures were always at odds because of the history of colonization from Spain. Um, so I grew up not I want to make it very clear that I
Yeah,
did not experience marginalization,
yeah.
but I got a glimpse into a fraction of what um racism and just being separated from each other, what it can do.
Okay, hold. I got to stop you there. You got a glimpse how? because
I
because
a very
no,
I got
let me finish the question only in this regard. Because of your heritage, are there others that will marginalize you?
so it's interesting. Okay. My grandmother that I knew growing up, she was Mexican and she had I think her father, I could be wrong, I think her father was half Spanish. So I grew up hearing from the older generation, "You're Spanish. You don't tell anybody you're Mexican. You don't tell anybody you're Mexican. You're Spanish." And there is a great my other grandmother wasn't allowed to have tortillas in the house. She had to have
And
Spanish.
that's Mexican.
Yes, yeah, tortillas
Okay,
um,
right.
originate from yeah Mexican descent.
Okay,
So there's little things like that. So I was, without realizing that's what was happening, the older generations were training the younger generations that that you should be ashamed of having Mexican descent. So
oh
then,
really?
yeah, and it was really interesting because I'm white. I,
Yeah,
I obviously, but I have this heritage that I was intentionally separated from. Um, and so I've kind of spent this time and it felt weird because it felt intrusive for me to try to put myself into a heritage that I didn't grow up with, but that I'm interested in because it's part of my heritage. You know what I mean?
yeah. Let me
The
ask you this question: What is you say you got Spanish heritage? Now,
mhm,
what does that mean? Because those from Spain
mhm,
came to America, knowing that they landed in Florida.
mhm.
I suspect what you're saying is they then also migrated to Texas,
Yeah,
and that's where that connection comes from.
so so Spain really liked colonization
Okay,
for those couple hundred years. They colonized into Central America, South America, Mexico, that area. So that's from the limited genealogy that I understand. That's where
sure.
the Spanish heritage came from in my family, is from people from Mexico that had Spanish descent, right?
I got you. I got you.
Right, if that makes any sense. There were for many, many years and I'm not as familiar with the history on this, so I
Yeah,
encourage
yeah. Sure, sure.
yeah, to do some background research on this, but you
Yeah,
had
yeah.
to much like in America where you during census you had to mark your race, ethnicity, you had to delineate whether or not you were Spanish or you were Mexican. So even people born in Mexico, if they were of Spanish descent, they had to register themselves as Spanish instead of Mexican, which created
Yeah.
a really racially um, segregated culture, right?
Okay,
At
okay.
least with the from what I grew up hearing and seeing.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, in your city, Texas City, where did the black people live
So there is
compared to where you live?
yeah, so I grew up in Galveston, which has you can see the effects of redlining to this day. I think it's gotten a lot better, but you can still see it. In
Yeah.
Texas City, one of the historic black areas is called the South Side, and then there's also the 1867 Settlement District.
Right.
The 1867 Settlement District was set up by a group of formerly enslaved families after the fall of the Confederacy, and the end of the Civil War. And that's really significant because formerly enslaved people, when they wanted to purchase property, oftentimes they had to get letters of like kind of similar to letters of recommendation today, right? Where they had to go to um, white people that knew them, and they'd have to write a letter that said, yeah, this, I know this person, I can vouch for them, they should be able to buy land. So when these five families set up the 1867 settlement district, only 2 years after um, after Juneteenth, right? Uh, I just think that's so very significant that they
Yeah, sure.
worked so hard in order to do that. And these families were enslaved prior to the end of the Civil War. They were enslaved on local ranches,
Okay.
cowboys on the Chisholm Trail, and
Oh,
they were enslaved by the owners of these ranches, right? Um,
yeah.
after the Civil War, they continued to work for a little while as cowboys, um, and then were able to create this self-sustaining community that we now call
Okay.
the 1867 settlement district.
Did were you taught Black history as a kid in grade school? And this leads to
Yeah.
how did you become so appreciative of wanting to learn history?
Yeah, so not really, honestly. We weren't, I mean, we were taught, Black History Month, right? Kind of the standard base level, right? Martin Luther King Jr., Rosa Parks, civil rights movement. But that's kind of where, when I was in school, where public education in Texas ended the conversation, right? There wasn't really any conversation about um, sharecropping post slavery, and how that essentially, in Jim Crow, there was very little discussion on that, and very little elaboration on the fact that, hey, it's not that slavery ended and everything was fine
Yeah,
until,
yeah, right, right.
right? Um, I but um I think what really got me interested in it was when I first went to college and I was in anthropology. Um, just seeing, I always grew up really, really upset that I was denied part of my heritage, right? And then
Yeah,
I started actually learning what true marginalization looks like, and true oppression, what it looks like. Um, it made me interested to learn about how it was structured, what structural racism looks like, and then
okay.
also the resilience of the people that have have had to experience it.
Well,
Um,
one more on you, and then we are getting where we want to go in terms of the history.
mhm.
What are some historical stories out of your town? And give us whatever prefer they are. Like, for example, somebody helped free the community down there in the during the Civil War. The Civil War was there. What might historical markers might be there in Texas City, and
Yeah,
or did
kind
they
of
have,
properties.
yeah, yeah, that kind of thing. Yes.
Yeah, one thing that we have in the museum that I think is really interesting, because it, even though it's not directly like tied to Black history, it's a way that I can open the conversation to it. We have a Dahlgren cannon from the USS Westfield. So that was a Union-owned ferry boat that the Union turned into a gunship during the Civil War. And the Battle of Galveston was fought in Galveston Bay, so between the Tech City Harbor, or Channel, and Galveston Harbor.
Okay, let me
And
stop you there. Let me stop.
yeah,
What's the Battle of Galveston Bay?
so the Battle of Galveston at the time was a really significant. It was of significant interest to both the South and the North, because of its natural shipping channel. So if you controlled Galveston, you could control supply runs to this part of the South and to a lot of the South. So it was really important for the Union to gain control over it, and it was really important for the Confederacy to not allow the Union to have control over it, right? Um, the Union did eventually have control over Galveston Bay. So the Battle of Galveston was essentially the Confederates trying to protect it, right? Trying
Because
to
they had it first.
correct. They had it first, yeah.
Okay.
This area was firmly in the Confederacy. So the Union to basically create a navy had to get creative, right? So they used ferry boats, steam-powered ferry boats, turned them into gunships, which is, I mean, just as a history nerd, I think that's really, and it kind of shows how quickly people develop technology and change in the time of war. Anyways, so the West Field was filled with ammunition, had a bunch of cannons, and it was down here in the bay. When the battle looked like it would not go in the favor of the Union, they opted to destroy the West Field, set it on fire, and it was filled with ammunition, so it exploded and was destroyed in the kind of Texas City portion of Galveston Bay, if that makes sense.
Okay.
And then in, I want to say 2011, it was starting to be officially excavated, and in 2017, pieces from the Westfield as well as the Dahlgren Cannon were put into the museum.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
so we
Now,
have,
okay, I got you. Okay,
yeah,
that's it. Not all this that battle happens during the Civil War,
mhm,
correct? Right?
yes,
What's the years of that? Because I mean, if the Civil War starts
right,
in South Carolina,
right.
how soon does it get to Texas? Is that towards the end, or is all battle skirmishes all over the
It-
region?
Yeah, it kind of started spreading just through it. I couldn't tell you exactly when it really spread further south, but I would say pretty immediately everybody felt as if they were at war. um the general culture of the time of one, maybe people who didn't want the South to secede, but they're living in the South, so now they have this high pressure to not look like Southern traitors, right? And then you have people who felt as if the Union in the North, that they called them despots, that they were these this authoritarian force that was trying to change Southern values. And to be so clear, when I was growing up, the way that the Civil War was taught in schools, in the schools that I went to at least, they always said that the Civil War was not about slavery. It was about states' rights. It was about states' economy. Um, to which the best rebuttal to that to me is always states' rights to do what? What were they?
Yeah,
What
right,
were
right. Yeah, that's the
they
easy
to do?
one. Yeah, no
Yeah.
question.
And you'll still hear that argument. You'll still
Yeah,
hear that argument to this day that it didn't start off about slavery. Meh, 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 meh.
yeah, yeah. But
Yeah.
I want to go back to that battle, and
Yes.
for me, and maybe you can help maybe help me
Yeah.
understand this. Okay, so again, it starts in South Carolina, which is a distance from Texas. Do the
Right.
people who in the Union soldiers do they walk across the area to get to Texas, or do they take boats to get over
Well,
there,
yeah. So that was,
go around Florida, what have you? Or
yeah.
yeah, how did they get there?
So the Battle of Galveston, was a couple of different things. It was both naval and um, there were troops coming. So, are you familiar with where Galveston is on a Texas map?
Yes. I was in Galveston a couple years ago for Juneteenth, so
Okay, yeah.
I got an idea. I think
Yeah.
it's at the lower southern tip.
Yeah, it's kind of like mid, it's in between Corpus Christi and Port Arthur.
Okay.
So kind of mid, but it's in this ideal location for for shipping, right? So there's already these natural channels. So there was the naval presence is what really was being used to try to take Galveston, right? So
Okay.
that was in, I just had to double check my notes for the date because I always get it confused because they were
Yeah.
fighting on New Year's Eve into New Year's Day. So it was from so it really took place in January 1st, 1863.
Okay.
In the middle of the war, right? Because the war spanned
Okay.
from 1861 to 65.
Right.
And
Right.
at this point, there's already skirmishes that had been happening throughout the South. I don't believe it goes to total war with General Sherman until probably 63, 64. Um, but yeah, that's from at first, at the start of the war, it felt as if the Confederacy had the advantage and was winning, and they were so sure that foreign nations would back the the newly formed Confederacy because of their cotton and sugar industry. And they found pretty quickly that that's not necessarily the case.
Is that right?
Yeah, that
Okay.
I think they had some support, but they didn't get what they really needed. They really thought that everybody would see that the Union were acting as authoritarian rulers and that the
Yeah.
South,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
and that wasn't the case.
Yeah.
And at
Now,
this point,
let me ask you this. I'm flipping the script just a tad. Where does Mexico fit in this? Because when Texas was first founded, it was under Mexican rule. Isn't that correct?
right, correct.
Does Mexico get in the Civil War in any regard? Do they play a role other than people fleeing to Mexico?
Yeah, I would say I'm probably not the historian to give you the best answer on
Yeah,
that.
yeah, yeah.
At this point, Texas had already um incorporated itself as a state separate from
Right, right,
Mexico.
right, right, right.
Um, so relations between Texans and Mexico weren't great, right? Because
Oh,
Texas saw it as gaining their independence, and Mexico saw it as colonizers rebelling against
okay.
what was what was originally Mexico.
I got
Remember
you.
the winners write the history. So in Texas you hear about, it's the Texas Revolution where we gained our independence and
Right, right.
um, I would say I'm not as educated on Mexico's involvement with this
Yes,
war, but I would say that it wasn't a significant involvement.
yes.
Yeah.
When we talk about the wars in Texas, their biggest crop was cotton, correct?
Mhm. Yeah.
In Texas City, are there former cotton plantations, and is cotton still grown
No,
as you when you were growing up, or any of that kind of thing?
no, by the time I was here, this place, it's visually hard to imagine that it was primarily like cattle and crop. Our big thing in this area was cattle and sugar. Cotton was a huge thing in Texas, but we have just up the street, uh, probably 30-45 minute drive from Texas City is Sugarland, Texas. Um, so there were plantations and the ranch that some of the original family members for the 1867 settlement came from was called Butler Ranch. Um,
Okay,
and because I'm looking at, maps from the 1860s versus today, it would be hard for me to pinpoint exactly where it was, but it was a nearby ranch. Uh,
okay, okay.
long, to make a long answer short, this
Yeah,
area was primarily cattle and sugar.
okay.
Mhm,
Now, it Texas uh, at one point had, I don't know, hundreds maybe of black towns and settlements.
mhm.
1867, as you mentioned, was one of them. Are there others in that region that we should know of?
In Galveston County, the only one, at least for sure, the only one that surviving, is the 1867 settlement district.
Right.
Um, and that is, I think to answer that, you would have to think about, because I'm thinking in relation to like Galveston, redlining.
Right.
Um,
Right.
in Galveston, you can see kind of, so it's a city that has a diverse population, right? But
Right.
it was like physically separated or segregated uh
Right.
because of redlining. So like in Galveston, historically, um some of that redlining took place north of Broadway, and I there wasn't any set like caps on the streets,
Oh, okay.
but north of
Okay.
Broadway, and then also on like a 1 by like 6 block area of seawall.
Okay.
Um, so when you came down, you know where Pleasure Pier was?
Don't remember that one.
So that is an amusement park that stretches out over the water, and that's on 25th Street.
Oh, really? I didn't see
Yeah.
it.
Just a couple of blocks over, so from about 27th to about 29th Street in on Seawall was the Black Beach that was
Oh,
designated for Black residents and visitors during segregation. Um, and then there was a
and
company,
what was it called?
Babes Beach.
Babes
Yeah,
Beach.
and
Oh,
that's what the locals have always called it, so I don't know if that was, like, a legal name that was used.
yes.
That's what
Yes.
I grew up hearing, that was Babes Beach, or that's what it's at least called now. Um, there was also accompanying Black businesses like, a 1 block radius or a 1 block area next to that, beach.
Okay.
One really significant thing about that were the lifeguards. So white lifeguards wouldn't watch over, right, the
Okay.
gated portion of the beach, and the city would not pay, initially to have, any Black lifeguards put onto staff. So, the community, the Black community that lived in that area came together and volunteered to sit on seawall and on the beach and watch the beach. Um,
Yeah. Okay.
yeah,
I
so
love it. I love it.
there were I really encourage you too to kinda look into the Galveston lifeguard their group has done a really great job at trying to keep that legacy alive,
Okay.
at least in the recent years. That's something
Yeah.
that they're very
And
vocal about.
in your museum, what are some of the other, in particular, Black history exhibits that you all talk about that you might have shared so far?
So one of my favorites is the Charles Brown exhibit. It's a smaller section, just kind of because of the limited artifacts, but we do turn it into a larger exhibit throughout the year. Anyway, so Charles Brown, are you familiar with him?
No. No.
He was a musician, phenomenal musician. Oh my goodness. He was most active and most famous from about mid 1940s to about mid 1950s.
Okay.
He did have a revival in the 80s and 90s with Bonnie Raitt. And he described himself as a ballad singer. He was a piano player and a singer, but he was kind of that early blues R&B um 40s 50s music, and
Okay.
he
He comes from that area.
yes, he comes from
Okay.
Texas City. He grew up in the 1867 settlement district in that historically Black part of town. And the locals talked about being able to hear him practice on his grandma's piano and everybody crowding around his front porch when he would practice to listen to him. Towards the end of World War II, he ended up moving to California, where he met Johnny and the Three Blazers, which was a jazz group, and he so he met them and he won a competition at the Lincoln Theater in California. And I can't remember exactly if that was LA or if that was San Diego. So I want to say LA. And because of that, they asked him to join their group. And Driftin' Blues is one of his most popular songs. It's so
Okay.
um I say jazz, but it's more like a blues jazz kind of mix,
Sure,
right?
sure.
So he gained fame pretty stinking quickly. He really had a quick rise. But in the 1950s, the popular music kind of started shifting into this new rock and roll style. And he talked about being potentially kind of blacklisted when he opted to come back to Texas City to see a sick family member rather than perform at venues that wanted him at that time.
Oh, really?
And so
Okay.
he kind of faced being kind of blackballed for a little bit. He did come out with Please Come Home for Christmas, which got really, really popular. You probably have heard it and didn't even realize it was him. Uh,
Yeah, okay.
yeah, and
Okay.
then after a while in the 1980s, Bonnie Raitt, she was hugely inspired by his work, and she was able to get in contact with him and convince him to go on like a reunion tour with her.
Oh, really? Okay.
So
Let,
he
let
got
me ask you this. Is there something that you would like to exhibit in the future that you're investigating now, maybe from a
yeah,
Black history perspective?
yes, I want to expand our section on the 1867 um, settlement district. And kind of the challenge that museums have is because we're a museum, right? People expect to see physical artifacts. Um, People are less likely to just read plaques if
Right,
there aren't artifacts accompanying it.
right.
Um, and it can be kind of difficult to find artifacts that are directly related to slavery and emancipation. Um, so I hope to be able to expand that section to really highlight um, the 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 district and the families that set up the district.
With you being in Texas City, uh, if people come to Galveston, are you the Black History Museum that talks about what happened in Galveston, or just
No,
as much, or is there another one in Galveston? When I was there, I was at the Nia Cultural Center,
yeah,
which was
they
more of
do.
an art gallery. Are you that museum for the district, or is there someone else that you don't mind mentioning?
Yeah, for Texas City specifically, I would say that I would like to become that. I would like to have more spaces in the museum that highlight Black history. For
Okay,
Galveston specifically, there is the African American History Museum. It's open, I
okay,
think, by appointments only.
yeah,
Um,
right,
but
yeah,
they're kind of the holders of that history. And then there's also the Galveston County Museum, and they are really great for getting in touch with other historians that maybe focus on that.
yeah.
Yeah,
Did,
so
did, did, did General Gordon Granger come through Texas City when they came to give word of freedom?
I don't know if there's any I have not seen any specific record that says he specifically came through Texas City. Um,
Right,
it would not surprise me, um, just because of its geographical location to Galveston. Uh,
right.
it wouldn't surprise me if he did come through here. But I know
One
his
more,
home was Galveston.
one more question before we kind of pivot to your thesis. Uh, Galveston, when I got there, there was a causeway or something, a little bridge that I rode over, drove over to get to the island. Was that always there, or is that man-made?
Mhm. Yeah,
And
so
initially, the only way to get to Galveston was by boat.
right. Right. So initially the only way to get over would be by like ferry or boat.
Oh,
It and then there was a wooden causeway. The first one, it was a wooden causeway that there I'm trying to think of the timeline. So there was the interurban railway that went from Houston down to Galveston. And it was basically basically a train, like a small train
yeah,
that could
yeah,
transport, and it actually came to Texas City as well. And that
yeah.
Texas City was one of the stops up to Houston.
Okay.
So that was here. And then there was a wooden causeway that was built somewhere around 1900. That got absolutely decimated, of course, because of the amount of hurricanes that we have.
Yeah.
And in 1913, I believe is when they began building a cement, like a heavy duty causeway,
Okay.
for the railway.
Okay.
And then it was rebuilt in 1915, rebuilt in 1930s, and then just continuously improved upon since then.
Okay. Um,
Mhm.
you mentioned the hurricanes that which how bad are they in Texas City? 'Cause when I was there in Galveston, I was supposed to stay till like Saturday or Sunday. My presentation was on Tuesday, and they were like the hurricane is coming, so we
Mhm.
might suggest you leave early, and
Yeah.
that is what I did. Is that something that you always worry about in Texas City also?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, especially being like the keeper of Texas City's artifacts, right? That's always
Yeah.
something that's in the back of my mind during hurricane season. And Galveston acts kind of as a natural barrier, right? It's a barrier island, but Texas City will still feel the pain of a hurricane.
Oh,
Um,
really?
it
Okay.
may be a little different just because of the geography of the city. We may not get 15-foot storm surge in the same way that Galveston would. But we still have to face, and hurricanes begin to weaken pretty quickly. Not quick enough, I will
Yeah.
say. Uh,
Right.
so like not this past summer, but the one before it, Hurricane Beryl, it came through, and one of the biggest damages that it did, it was like really a wind event. We
Right.
didn't really have any storm surge or anything. It knocked out a lot of electricity in a lot of areas for about a week to 2 weeks for some people
Okay.
in Texas City.
As we almost, I mean, we still have more time, come to a close. Tell us about what you initially said in terms of your thesis
Yeah.
and your research in that area. Start us at the beginning. How did you get started and pick this topic, so on and so forth?
Yeah, so I am really interested in the history. I'm interested in oppression and the history of oppression and resistance and the way that it impacts um gender and human sexuality, if that makes any sense.
Okay.
Kind of a broad thing there. But I got really, really interested then into women's history. And somehow, and I can't tell you how, I think it's just because I had one professor that I really loved. I got into Civil War history and specifically women during the Civil War. So I was a assistant for a couple of semesters for my professor, and she had me researching one particular woman named Augusta Jane Evans, who was an author during the Civil War. She was a white woman. She was an author. She was slave owning, or I should say slave holding. She was slave holding, and she wrote what I consider to be propaganda for the South, um, and what other historians consider as well. So I started thinking about that, and I was like, "There's no way women weren't seen as active political agents during the Civil War, and even
Okay, let me stop you there. Stop you there.
yeah,
And don't forget that thought. When you say propaganda, she was promoting slavery.
correct. She was promoting Southern values, and at the time, we know
Okay.
Southern
Was
values.
slave. Okay. Okay. I got you. All right. I'm sorry.
No, no, that's a great question.
Yeah.
Yeah, she was promoting Southern values, and she
Let me
was
stop you there. I got when how do you promote those values? What are you saying?
so she
Have you read in her work and what
I
is she
have.
saying in her work that says, okay, this is okay. We need
So
to treat them like that.
the way that there was this really gross, idea, amongst, slave-holding white people that, uh, the master of the plantation, the man, right? That he was this father figure over everyone, including the slaves.
Oh, really?
There's yeah, and it's really weird and gross and kind of convoluted the way that they get to that idea. Um, and there's this common saying called "our family, white and black." Um, and it was a way, I think, like cognitive dissonance for them to justify it to the outside world that, hey, and it's all rooted in racism, right? It's all rooted in this idea that of white supremacy, and that they're doing a favor to these people that they have enslaved, that they're living this much better life now that they're under the guidance of the patriarch of the household, right? Um, very again, it's convoluted and it was used as justification to enslave people for free labor. Uh,
Do they go back to say they're doing better than they did in Africa?
yes.
Is that where the better, where it starts in their discussion?
Mhm.
They were, savages or whatever they were, they want to
That is
terms,
exactly
adjectives they want to use, and they're
that was
now doing
exactly
better because they're not that way any longer.
yeah, exactly, and, which is it's just so convoluted to reach that conclusion, right? With the brutality of what the reality and brutality of slavery, to reach the conclusion that these group of people were better off under that
Okay,
systematic
right,
oppression.
right, sure,
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah,
And
and
so she talks about this, and then, but you say it had a political something that you
yeah,
were going into.
the way that she did it was very initially very covert, where she wrote a romance novel, right? Beulah. And she's promoting these Victorian ideals of what the perfect white woman looked like. And she would do small things like mention the servant and the faithful servant. And what she's really talking about is an enslaved person.
All right.
And she paints this idea in her books that Victorian Southern life, very very specifically upper class Victorian Southern white life, is this beautiful ideal um, that shouldn't like that others try to paint it in a way that you wouldn't be able to put any negative connotations on it,
I
right?
got you. I got you.
Then come the Civil War, she puts out something called Marcaria. She called it Marcaria or Altars of Sacrifice, and it is a straight up propaganda piece where she rewrites some of the battles to make them look like the Confederacy was winning. So that's just blatant propaganda.
Oh,
Um,
really?
so I read those and I'm like, well, she can't be an outlier. She can't be an outlier, right? There's no
What does
reason
that mean?
she can't be the only woman who's doing that.
Or who's thinking this way?
Exactly, and I
Okay.
started digging and finding, anonymous newspapers that were signed using a female pseudonym. So there's no if you wanna be anonymous, it's weird to gender your anonymity, right? Unless you think that the female perspective is important here. And so then it kind of expanded and thought about, well, what about enslaved women and formerly enslaved women? So my argument is that slave narratives that came out by like Harriet Jacobs, who wrote Sojourner Truth, who necessarily didn't do slave narrative, but had her famous anti-woman speech, um, that those should be considered agents of political persuasion, and that they were working in the same capacity as these rich white women. Whereas previously, in my opinion, a lot of historians tend to look at white women over here, black women over here, when their histories were colliding and melding and I think it's important to look at what these formerly enslaved women did to fight for freedom for future generations and for their loved ones.
Well,
Uh,
so let me sum this up. What you're saying is the white women, like that lady who wrote the books and all the things, the propaganda, she was saying slavery is good for them, but the black women were not saying that.
Correct.
They were saying the complete opposite,
Yes. Yeah. Um,
understandably.
yeah, and they were the if if you've never um if you've never read a slave narrative, it's really, really powerful to read. Um, and
It
I
had to talk about the brutality that they faced too.
and sometimes you get that brutality between the lines because this is obviously an incredibly unimaginably traumatic thing to live with
Yeah,
and to
sure.
experience. So sometimes the way that they spoke about it was in a way that you have to know the history of what slavery really looked like to understand the type of brutality that they're talking about. Uh,
Okay.
it's really anyways,
Yeah.
what I was getting at with that,
Yes.
is that those that literature was put out with the expressed purpose of educating people about what slavery really looked like. Um, and so that then to me makes it an important piece of political material. And
Sure.
that
Sure.
then puts that the author, these Black women and these formerly enslaved Black women in a space of really, really important political agency that I think
I
hasn't
got you.
been
I
appreciated
got you.
before.
Are there names that we don't know of writers,
I'm
or
sure.
that you suggest that we should, people who are watching to say, and is it available in some form or fashion where we can read some of what these Black women have written?
I would say so. There's Frances Ellen. God, she made some good poetry. Let me she she has four she has a four name. So I often get it confused. So let me just make sure that I have it correct.
Yeah, yeah.
Frances Ellen Watkins Harper. She was an American abolitionist and suffragist, and she wrote really fantastic poetry. And then I think some of the big hitting names too, that I think people should revisit through the lens of seeing them as political actors. Sojourner Truth and Harriet Jacobs, I think especially Sojourner Truth, in my opinion, um, with her speech "Ain't I a Woman."
Right.
I think it's a really good example of how her her writing was political, so she
Okay.
delivers it in one way in the 1850s, and then it becomes republished in the 1860s, and it leans into this stereotype vernacular that people expected enslaved women to speak like. Um,
Oh, really? Okay.
when it was
Okay.
first printed, it was printed in just standard what you would expect somebody with education to speak
Right.
like.
Right.
So they changed her words, but in my thesis, I kind of argue that she had agency over that print choice because of the woman that reprinted it, Sojourner Truth knew and worked with
Okay.
the abolitionist movement.
When these people, and I want to say from both sides, the lady who's propaganding slavery as good, the other ones who were enslaved saying it's not. How did this get disseminated and
Yeah,
dispersed?
yeah,
Were
excellent
these
question.
in book forms, and then they went across the country? Somehow the publisher was able to send it out. Yeah, that you got
Yeah,
it.
great, really fantastic question. So, some of my sources were newspaper articles, either written anonymously, but again, gendered with a pseudonym like Joan,
Right.
um, or they were published in book format. Augusta Jane Evans, she printed books, and during the Civil War, when she printed Macaria, Altars of Sacrifice, it was smuggled out of the Confederacy. There was kind of a book ban in the Confederacy where they didn't want Northern literature coming down here, and they didn't want Southern, they wanted to control that. So she got it smuggled out and it became a bestseller. Uh, and then Harriet Jacobs, her slave narrative was printed as a book, and other slave narratives as well. The Life of a Slave Girl is the name of that. Um,
Okay.
yeah, so it's kind of mixed media. I focused on newspaper and books primarily. Um, but yeah, it just depended on the author and how they
So
felt.
so at the end of the day, what is your premise behind this? You're just saying that it happened, or are you,
Yeah,
yeah,
I
are you
would say,
offering some opinion as to
yeah,
the validity of it?
yeah,
Whatever,
my
whatever.
my thesis, my like kind of big catch-all argument in there is that Black women at this time should be considered as political agents as well, and not
Okay.
just
Okay.
as there's kind of a tendency to unintentionally just victimize because they were victims, right? But they were also fighting for freedom
Yeah, sure.
and promoting resistance. And so my argument then is that women across the board in America were political agents, and particularly we need to view these Black women and these formerly enslaved women as political agents in their own right, and
Okay.
not necessarily just think of them as these passive actors that weren't
Okay.
fighting.
Yeah. No, I got you.
Yeah.
I guess one more, two more probably as I go along. Is there somebody that came out of Galveston, formerly enslaved, that became a successful business person, or somebody that they followed their career
Mhm.
that we don't know of, that said, okay, they, because not all of them remained as sharecroppers.
Right.
I would suspect, and there might be somebody that we should know of that
Yeah.
maybe you've heard of that said, hey, this guy right here, he was on the island. He got word on June 19th, and then he did such and such. He or her.
I would say, um, so while I don't have a specific name for Galveston specifically, I would say the Bell families in really all of the settlement district families,
Yes.
particularly the Bell families, uh, um, Frank Bell Jr., right? He wasn't alive at during the Civil War, but he was, a direct descendant. He was first or second generation living in the settlement district, firmly during segregation, uh,
Okay.
Jim Crow, and he became a very successful real estate agent.
Oh,
He
okay.
actually set up, I think it's Carver Park that he set up, that was the first um, like public park in Galveston County designated for African Americans.
Oh, okay.
So I think he is, and again, he was really very successful in his career. So I think he's somebody that should be considered as that.
Okay. Is there a question that I have not asked? Something like you might have wrote notes and said, I want to get this out. I didn't
Uh,
question on it, anything like that.
not that I can
Not,
think
not,
of.
not offhand. Okay.
Yeah,
Well,
I appreciate you letting me go on about my thesis. I don't get to
yeah,
talk
yeah,
about
yeah. We want to do it. Okay, let's do this then. How do people come to the museum? What's the website? So on
it.
and so forth.
So, we are the Texas City Museum. Um, I if you have any questions, I would suggest, looking up our Facebook, just Texas City Museum. And then we are a part of the City of Texas City Parks and Rec Department. So you can find us through the City of Texas City website as well if you just
Okay.
search Texas City Museum. Uh,
Okay.
and yeah, I would love to have anybody
Yeah.
come in, and if you have any follow-up questions when you come in,
Yeah. Oh yeah, sure. Yeah, we're going to do that. I got to come back to Galveston.
yeah.
I guess one more last question. Is there again, and I think we alluded to it earlier, is there like, other than Juneteenth, is there something down in the Texas City, Galveston area, like a big catfish fry or something like that? You know, people
Uh,
come back to, and a
yeah,
blues festival or anything like that that happens that we big tourist attraction?
yeah, there is a lot. We're getting into festival season now, so just general festivals, right?
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
we have like we put on Train Fest in October. It's Model Train Festival. The Tech City Museum puts that on. Then
Oh,
there's
really?
also Touch a Truck, which is really a lot of fun out here on 6th Street, just outside of the museum. And then
What
Galveston is
is that? Touch
Touch
a
a
truck.
Truck. It's it's really cool. It's a family event, a bunch of different vehicles of all different types. Like we're talking helicopters, Coast Guard vehicles, um, motorcycles, monster trucks, all that kind of stuff, uh, show up on 6th Street, and it's a chance for like kids and adults to climb into these really cool like
Oh,
cars.
I see what you're saying.
Yeah,
Okay,
it's completely free, and there's usually Halloween themed things like a
I
pumpkin.
see what you're saying. Okay,
Uh,
all
and then
right.
gumbo cook-off in Galveston in September, Shrimp Fest,
Oh,
and
really?
yeah, as a massive fan of gumbo, it's worth it's worth making
Okay,
a visit for, yeah,
okay. I got to look into that.
yeah.
Well, hey, I thank you so very much for coming on the show, Strong Inspirations. This is what I do through the people who come on here and eloquently tell these stories,
Yeah,
as she has done today, and told us about her hometown and her growing ups and so on and so forth. And I thank you for doing that. Again, hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, hit the notifications bell. Tell somebody about Strong Inspirations. Go to my website, everybody, businessintheblack.net. Do it today. Get you a copy of this book. And I don't have a new book out. I don't have it with me just yet. I get it next day or so from the printer. Uh, they did it. The children's coloring book, and then also That's My Land, which will be out soon too. And all that's on the website, and you can order it now there. I thank you so very much for coming on again. And I want to say this, and I mean this with all sincerity. I want you to stay strong, stay safe, stay on your grind, keep keeping that history alive, keep telling those stories, keep enlightening people, and I'm sure through your efforts and the efforts of the museum that it changes minds too,
I
makes
hope
people feel a little more sympathetic. How
I hope
about that?
so.
Yeah, I appreciate you doing that. With that, I'll say bye bye. We out.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for
Thank you.
having me.
Sure.